to Behind the Whites with me, Jim, and him over there, Chris Hyder. How are we doing this week? Well, we're not doing too badly. 2-1 in the game at the weekend against Peterborough United. We'll get stuck into that, of course, during the course of this edition of Behind the Whites. What has gone on with the women's team? We'll get stuck into all of that as well, because we can't not.
No.
Wow, I mean, last week my head was just spinning.
Your head was spinning. At least you and Danny were kept abreast of it. I didn't find out until late on Tuesday evening.
Yeah, well,
to be honest, a lot of people were in the same boat, but I found out after you and Danny had been informed that something bad was happening there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd spoken to a couple of people and I found out a couple of bits, but nothing, even now I couldn't go on record and say this is exactly what has gone on, because it's not, it's a lot of, second-hand information that I've got, and it's just a mad situation. But we'll do our best to kind of sum up what we believe has gone on. Of course, there was the article in the Bolton News as well. So there's plenty to talk about anyway. Loads of stuff to get stuck into. A big shout out, of course, to our good friends Bolton FM and Imagination Street, who have let us use this wonderful space. It's a great place, so come and check it out. If not for the wonderful office space or the training facilities or the wonderful street setup they've got, but they've got an arcade machine and they've got some darts and a pool table and all of that, so plenty of stuff to get stuck into. Oh, and a bar as well. So
you're proper selling it, Jim.
There you go. Imagination Street, it's belting, and if you come on the right tonight, then you might see us knocking about as well. So there you go. Anyway, let's crack on to a little bit of Wanderers and we'll get stuck in to the home win against Peterborough United. 2-1 in the end, and to be fair, at the start of that game, you could have been forgiven for thinking we were going to absolutely run away with it, because we started like a house on fire. But not the way it ended up.
No. You know what? I ended up saying this on Wanderers Live Extra Time, and you can catch it on Bolton FM after every Bolton match on a Saturday. Basically, I'd ended up saying, why is it Bolton do it the hard way? Because Bolton Wanderers. That was the only thing I could say. You think back to what they've been like under Gary Megson. I started 3 matches I went to during the 2008-9 season. All of them ended up being 1-goal victories that could have been a lot more straightforward. You cite the Dougie Freeman game, his first one, where, fair enough, they had to come from behind to beat Cardiff, but could have ended up being a lot smoother than needs be. It
does seem to be the way we work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I have to have a little bit of hard work about it. But one thing I was pleased with was, well, if more than one thing I was pleased with in the game, but one thing that I would highlight, despite the fact that the second half was a little bit of a dull affair, was we went out there and we just looked like we shut it down. We just like went, right, well, let's just have this now.
It just felt as though that if there was going to be a 4th or 5th goal occurring in the match, the more likely team to score would have been Bolton, because Peterborough...
Yeah, they didn't offer... Again, it was a little bit of a dull affair because we weren't getting at them like we were in that opening flurry where we took the 2-goal lead, but they weren't troubling us. We never really looked under any real threat. It was just... Second half seemed to me just like a very professional performance of let's see this out and not have any stillies again like we've just conceded. Let's just go on and make sure we win this game. If they have chances as well, and a couple of them you're looking at and thinking, we're unlucky there not to get a 3rd goal. But maybe getting ahead of ourselves a little. Of course, Mason Burstow scoring twice in the opening 21 minutes, both of which were fantastic goals.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, we did forget about the fact there were 2 changes from the Northampton game. You had Erhan coming back in for Josh Sheehan, and Cyrus Christie, needs be.
Yes.
He was the only available right back that Bolton had, but he went straight in.
When that's your only available right back and he pings in a ball like that, that'll do for me. I like it. I like Christie. I think he's a very good addition to the squad. I think he gives us fabulous depth in that position, because you can put him into a game and he's not played very much first team football thus far for Wanderers. He's been put in there, making a start. Didn't look like he'd not been in and around the first team on the field for quite some time. He looked like just a regular member of the squad. He slotted in so comfortably. He looked completely at home, and he provided a very good cross for Mason Burstall's first goal.
Yeah, those 2 games in the EFL Trophy out wonders, in addition to the matches he's had for the B team and the training matches.
I just think it shows how well he's looked after himself in his career. I think it shows the natural fitness the man's got, because he didn't get a proper pre-season. He has had limited appearances thus far, to get those minutes in the legs, and he did not look in any way, shape or form like he was struggling.
No, he didn't. It was good that he was able to play for as long as he did on Saturday. And as you mentioned, the ball in he provided for Mason to get Bolton underway. Tidy finish as well by Mason. Let's not take anything away from that. And then another well-worked goal occurs in the 21st minute. And it's one of those it's not quite a counter-attack goal, but it's one that goes from the Bolton penalty area to the Peterborough penalty area. How quick was it? How many passes?
It was pretty quick, and they were very incisive passes, and it was a really nice move. It was great link play between 2 or 3 players there. The balls for each phase of play were great. I did think at one point that maybe the chance had gone, but it was actually a very clever turn that, even as me watching as a fan, completely mugged me off. And then the ball through for Mason was fantastic, and the touch was just absolutely delightful.
I know this didn't happen. Yeah, delectable is the right word. I know this didn't happen, but part of me imagines that he rebonded it.
I mean,
you wouldn't put it past him based on how.
I mean, it wasn't far off. The way he's just had that little flick round, it's audacious, and to have the confidence to be trying that in that kind of pressure situation, absolutely just shows where his head's at this moment in time. He's in a great run of form, great confidence. All right, yes, he had that miss a few games ago, but who cares about that when your reaction to it is to just get straight back into scoring form?
That's just it. The previous game against Northampton ends up missing that effort that would have made things a lot different down at Sixfields. But that is quite a way for you to respond.
Oh yeah, 2 cracking finishes, one with either foot. It's a shame we didn't see him get an header later on.
Yeah, he did allude to it in his post-match interview, saying, "Well, I was hoping to complete a hat-trick, but well, we got the win, so that's the most important thing."
And that is the most important thing. It's 3 points on the tally. Fair play to Peterborough. I thought that when we I think that when we kind of allowed them to have a little bit of a say in the game, they took the chance well when it came, and it doesn't surprise me. We know what Peter Kyoso's all about. Former Wanderers
player.
Yeah,
indeed.
Did score a couple for us back in the day, and showed again. He's a tiny finisher, because it was a very good finish, and I felt that there was absolutely nothing that Teddy could have done about that.
Teddy, we should thank him for the fact he managed to keep out their top scorer so far, Jimmy J. Morgan, out.
After giving him a bit of stick last week, I think, after watching this week's game, I had nothing negative to say about him. I think it was a really good performance. What he needed to do, he did, and he did it well. He was nothing I can really say about Teddy Sharman-Lowe other than positives from that game.
There's nothing bad about any of the Bolton players that turned out on Saturday. You can say anything bad about it.
I think people just wanted a little bit more. I think people wanted a few more goals. I think that people got a little bit turned off in the second half because it was a little bit dull.
And the thing is,
sometimes it's got to be that way.
You can immediately say to them to try and shut them up. It won't succeed, but you can try and shut them up and go, well, did Bolton win? Yes, exactly, right, that's it. And the debate's over.
And the other thing is, at 2-1 as well, you go into that second half, we've seen previously this season that when we do go forward and try and get another goal, sometimes we can be caught out. We saw against Wigan, we were trying to attack too fast in a situation where we didn't really need to, and it cost us a goal. And all right, at 4-0 up, that's not a massive issue. But when you're 2-1 up coming into that second half, you don't want to be taking any undue risks. It's not the most stable of scorelines. In fact, people say it's a very dangerous scoreline to be at when you're leading, especially if you scored the first 2 goals, because that momentum has then shifted towards your opponents in the pulling back of a goal. So I don't blame them for going out there and maybe being a little bit dull. at the end of the day, it resulted in 3 points, and that's absolutely vital as we, keep trying to push up towards the top end of the table.
I always remember the last game that Megson took charge of, and I was there that night against Hull. I don't know. Yeah, that was not a good night whatsoever, was it? Bolton were winning 2-0. They were looking comfortable. They conceded a goal. Then, who was it he took off, and the entire crowd ended up going, "What are you doing that for?" Klasnich or something like that.
Might well have been. I mean, it's a lot. I do remember that game. I remember watching it back at Hartley Street in the day on the projector. But it was.
I remember when the equaliser happened for Hull. The whole stadium turned against Megson.
Well, I went to. I mean, granted, the stadium, not much of the stadium was ever really with Megson, but I remember going to bed that night after that game and saying. I was saying to my housemate Danny, I says, well, at the end of the day, I says, it's not a good result, but I won't care if I wake up in the morning and he's gone.
You got your wish.
And I woke up in the morning and in work after about half an hour, boom, the news was out. Megson had been sacked and not before time. And the man, look, I know we're wandering off into the sticks a little bit.
No, I know.
The man should never have been given the job in the first place. It was... the appointments after Sam Allardyce were very, very poor. Sammy Lee was, granted I see why they took the gamble on him because he was a great assistant, fantastic coach, but to give him the remit of trying to transform the way the team were going to play from the big Sam's way to how Sammy Lee wanted us to play, on the budget that he tried to do it was just madness. And, he's never gone back into being a manager again, so he obviously mustn't have felt it was for him. So... fantastic assistant, fantastic coach, great player back in his day, but a manager he was not, especially not at that top level. And then Megson, and then I remember it was as if it was almost like a masterstroke. Well, we always had Megson in the back pocket. Like, why? He's never done anything in the Premier League. What are you thinking?
I'm not.
He was biz, and everyone knew he was going to be biz.
The one thing you could say in his favour, he did guide Bolton to a Premier League victory over Man United.
He did, and I was there that night, and it was glorious.
Yes, I imagine it was.
That night, the feeling was like, it's not if, but when they equalise. And somehow they just didn't. And some of the chances they had, I remember Tevez missed an absolute sitter from a couple of yards out, and as it fell to him, the entire home side of the stadium went, oh. And then it missed, and everyone just went, hey! And that was the first little thing in my head that went, oh my God, maybe we're going to do this.
I thought it was going to happen a few years early because I was there. I shouldn't have been there because it was the day of my mum and dad's marriage renewals. And for some...
And you buggered off to football?
Well, I didn't bugger off. I managed to get permission to go.
Fair enough.
I should have... It could have been... I really ought to have just done that thing. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission, that kind of thing. However...
Where's Chris?
However, when Ferdinand bundled home that goal with 2 minutes left, I thought, I'm going to be here to see Bolton beat Man United, and then that really bizarre goal at the end, I'd forget.
Nicky Hunt and Jussi Jääskeläinen, just both of them looking at each other like, I don't know, you do something. I think it was Nick, and if it wasn't Nicky, then I apologise to him. But in my mind's eye, that's who it was.
I think that was the first time I ended up losing my voice at a football match, which wasn't particularly great because, I made a mention of my parents earlier. They were due to have a silver anniversary party at the Astley Bridge Cricket Club. So kind of, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honour. Well, that's how it could have been for me. Look, the reason why we've done this little side venture is...
Because Gary Megson were crap.
No, it is the fact that you did say 2-0 is not a good lead to have at any point, and that ended up in my mind.
2-1 even.
2-1.
Yes.
I had to bring up the whole game and
that United game as well.
and offer that example of this Bolton Wanderers in 2025. They know how to see out games. Bizarrely, Bolton in those two instances were provided couldn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and look, they can see out a game, and we know they can do that. It's just making sure that we're in the position to do it. We've seen that we've had to come from behind to get points quite a few times this season. When you fall behind, you put yourself in a position where you kind of, you're on the back foot, obviously, and to fight back into it, to rescue a point is great, but in games where you want to be getting 3 points, you've got to try and not shoot yourself in the foot early doors. But when we do take the lead, we do look good for it, and that is definitely a promising sign. And I think that as we go on through the season, keep picking up these results. That's the most important thing. Get the points on the board, and we'll be in and around it. So in some way. And I know that people, there's a feeling that we should be challenging for the top 2, and I believe we probably should be challenging for the top 2. But
we played 11 games. Calm down a little bit.
Yeah, but also if we're going to end up in the playoffs, I'd rather scrape in and be that team that's like, "Wait, we've got in the playoffs," and carries that joyous momentum into the tournament, and often seems to do quite well, rather than finishing third like we did last time and bottling it and being like, "We should have got automatics and we've ended up in the playoffs. I know we've lost," because it's just way more miserable.
Yeah, can you tell we've not quite gotten over the Oxford game from nearly 18 months ago now?
It should never have happened.
I know.
It should have gone up. Anyway,
I know they really didn't deserve to be there, did they? They were lucky to scrape past Barnsley.
We'd hammered them! Like weeks previous, we'd absolutely tore them to pieces.
Who cares?
And then we'd serve up that dross.
They didn't turn up straightforward.
Honestly, I'd have put more out into that. I mean, granted, we probably would have lost more, but because I'm not very good, but still. Anyway,
yes.
We did see out the game, and we held up. We held out. I said we didn't really hold on, did we? We just professionally cruised to the 3 points. Yes, not the most exciting, but sometimes I'd just rather take the points and try and be exciting.
You just have to accept that if you are a team that want to.
It's not very often this season where you could say that we've had a really dull game.
But you take it if it means that Bolton end up getting the 3 points.
Yeah, I'll take the odd dull game for comfortable points, and then it felt comfortable. At no point did I feel that Wanderers were uncomfortable. At no point did I feel like we were having to do any backs to the wall defending to keep Peterborough out. They didn't really seem to bring a great deal forward actually later on in the game.
Admittedly, someone rang in towards the end of Wanderers Live extra time and said, "I'll give Peterborough the due, they're the best team we've come up against this season." Which, you look at it and you think, how is it that they're down there at the bottom of the table?
They certainly didn't look like a team that should be struggling the way that they are struggling. But I think in recent weeks you've seen improvement from them. You've seen them starting to go in the right direction in terms of performance. It's just not really translated itself into results yet. No. That has to change very quickly for them, or they'll end up cut adrift, and then it's going to be a real uphill battle in the second half of the season to try and turn that form around. But from the performance that we saw, yes, it wasn't scintillating by any stretch, and I don't think you can go away thinking, they were very unlucky not to bring something away. But they're not a team that should be languishing at the bottom of the table from that performance. They seem very capable, and again, they took the goal well when they did fashion a chance. But in the second half, when we seemed to just be comfortable controlling it, there didn't seem to be a step up in gear from them either. As the team that were trying to chase the game, at no point did I think, they've started to come at us now. After that spell in the first half where they got that goal, I can't really remember much else they did.
It was a bit like last year when Bolton went to Crawley. They were leading 1-0. They were content to allow them to have a lot of the ball, and I never felt as though Crawley were looking likely at any point to get an equaliser.
Yeah, similar feelings.
Yeah, the second goal ended up occurring, and that puts whatever semblance of a game there was to bed. And in a sense, it did feel like that against Peterborough. You just looked at it and thought, well, they're having a lot of the ball, but they're not really doing all that much with it. I think from Bolton's vantage point, it would have been nice to have added a third goal. Simon's coming closer more than anyone. Good little shot.
Like I said, you can see we were looking up for the third goal because that was a cracking strike. And if that's an inch lower, it's pinging down and maybe having the old Yeboah moment into the back of the net, and that is what you want to see. That is the attacking threat you want from those midfielders, that when there's a loose ball on the edge of the box, they can ping in a strike like that. Unfortunately, it didn't quite go our way. It pinged off and upwards and away. But that's what Simons can bring you. You know, he can really strike a ball.
Yeah, he's got a chance to make amends for it. Well, those that wanted to get on the score sheet on Saturday have got a chance to make amends for it on Saturday.
Yes,
and
indeed.
then this time next week, we're doing this on a Thursday, by the way, but this time next week, Huddersfield Town. Thanks, Sky. So yeah, that's certainly something to take into consideration.
Yeah, Huddersfield Town on your telly box on Thursday night. But hey, on the plus side, it's a slightly less hectic Saturday down at Bolton FM. I mean, I know there's still...
What the hell are you talking about? I've got a 4-hour Saturday sport to do that day.
I know, but oh yeah, will you do the extra time slot as well?
Well, yes and no. I mean, if people want to ring in, give their thoughts on the Huddersfield game from 2 days before, then yeah, by all means do that.
Fair enough. Well, it's a day off for me, so, you know...
You've got another day off after that because... The 1st of November, you're not at Bolton FM, I should say.
No, I'm at Bolton Town Wrestling, of course.
Yeah, Last Drop Village. Nice surroundings.
Doing a little bit of managing.
Shh. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I've got got irons in the fires at the moment, so I'm hoping to be at that show despite having been slung out of the last one and previously fired. But, well, there's a gym, there is a way, and I'll be getting myself back in those doors, I'll tell you right now. Anyway... I'm also fighting on Sunday.
Oh, yes.
Granted, this will go out on the Friday, so you know if you do want to get tickets for me versus Drill, This Is Wrestling Russian Roulette in Ormskirk, be my guest. I'd love to see you down there. You can watch me take a kicking from Drill in the first half main event. So, yeah, first ever proper wrestling match. It's a street fight. I'm gonna get hurt. Maybe I won't be. Maybe we won't do this next week because I'll just be like, no, I need to rest my battered body. But we'll see how that all goes. So if you want to do that, just get on the Tinterwebs, get on your Google box, and just search This Is Wrestling Russian Roulette tickets, and it'll come up. You get your Skiddle or whatever it is, or Eventbrite, whatever we use over at This Is Wrestling, and yeah, come and see me get my head kicked in.
Can we segue successfully into the women's team or into Burton game now?
Of course, Burton Albion, yeah. Burton Albion, look, it's another game you look at and think this should be a game where we go and we get 3 points, but we've not been brilliant on the road this season. And, you know, going off down to the Brewers might be a tough game. They're not going to be pushovers by any stretch.
No, there's no might. It is going to be a tough game. It was a great feeling when they finally got the first away victory at Burton back in March. And I think at that point, Burton, when they lost, Gary Bowyer, from what I can gather, thought, that's it. There's fewer than 2 months left of our season. We're going to get relegated. Look at what they did, though. Yeah, they ended up rattling off a few wins and managed to overtake both Cambridge United and Bristol Rovers and secured the status in League One. Shouldn't have really happened, but you know what? Full credit to Burton for being able to make it work for themselves.
No, absolutely, and you know they're a tough team, and they're not going to be pushovers. Like I said, it's the kind of game. You know, we looked at the Northampton game and said, you know, we should be getting 3 points from this game. We went there and we got turned over. It is what it is. You've got to be, but we've got to go down to Burton. We've got to be better than we were on the road at Northampton, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yes.
But again, as we saw at the weekend, you know, home or away, wherever you are, it can only take, you know, you only need a great 20 minutes and you've won a game. So, and as we saw with Northampton, they had a good spell, won the game.
And that's just it. I think I made a mention of this last week. Josh Coughlin said we were good in spells, but if you don't score in them spells, it means nothing. Northampton did have good spells. They managed to find 2 goals, and hey, they ended up getting the 3 points.
And that's it. And that's what we've got to make sure we're doing against Burton. And we've got to make sure that when we go on the road, and you know, maybe not just on the road, but you know, you go on the road and maybe your chances aren't as, you know, are a little more limited than they would be when you're at your own turf. But also against teams like I'm imagining Burton will probably do, we're going to get that low block, it's going to be difficult to break them down, they're going to try and frustrate us, they're going to try and hit us on the break. When we do get that opportunity, we've got to take them because we've seen what happens when we don't, or what can happen when we don't. And again, Burton is somewhere, as much as they are a tough team to come up against, it's somewhere that you can't argue. It should be 3 points on the board for Wanderers when you go to places like Burton, when you go to places like Northampton.
Now, you see, I'm going to have to credit Stephen Schumacher for what he said at the presser earlier on. You look at Burton this season, went to Cardiff, got a victory. No one would have given them a chance to do that. They went to Huddersfield Town, got a 0-0 draw out of it.
But we should still be beating them.
I know we
are
should
a better
still be
side
beating
and we
them.
should be beating them.
But
whether we will or not, we'll have to wait and see, because we have not been convincing at all on the road this season.
I wouldn't change the midfield.
No,
I think that was. I could see the merit. I said this before.
I'd start, to be honest with you, with pretty much the same team that started that game.
Yeah, I don't have any arguments with that whatsoever. You need a midfield that is going to be as combative as you know Burton's will be.
I'm not sure when Dakar Coggle will be back, but
I think he's fine. He's going to be included this weekend.
But even on that, I mean, I think Dakar Coggle has been good this season, but in general. But I think that Cyrus Christie didn't do anything wrong at the weekend to merit being dropped necessarily. So, and it was a defensive unit that right we let in that one goal, but other than that second half they just shut them out and that was it. We'll see what lines up. I wouldn't necessarily be disappointed if Dakar Coggle comes back in either. I think that they're both good players. I just really like that Cyrus Christie's just there and ready to do a job.
Do you think if Cyrus starts on Saturday, that means that Cogley will start against Huddersfield?
Potentially so, because again, you've got the quality there to do that rotation, or vice versa. They could do either way. I think that's definitely something to look at, especially if with Josh coming in, backing off an injury. I know it's not been like a bad injury, but still, you don't want to take any chances if you don't have to. And maybe that rotation would be a good option. And again, I don't think that you when you put Cyrus Christie in there, I think it's a slightly different option, but I don't necessarily think it's a worse option. I think he brings a different set of cards to the table, but I think they're still very, very effective. He brings that experience. All right, he's not as quick, but he's also he's not. I'm not saying he's slow, but I think that Josh is definitely the quicker of the two. I think Josh, you get a little bit more attacking intent, but I think that you get a steadier game with Cyrus Christie. Plus, we have seen him go forward. We've seen him put in a decent ball as well. So I'm happy with whoever plays on that side of defence. To be honest with you, I just want them to keep a clean sheet. Really, I don't want to see that moment where we switch off, because to be honest with you, Peter, that spell of 5-10 minutes or so, it just looked like we'd just switched off a little bit and. It can be difficult, I'd imagine, when you are on top of the game to keep your defensive head on. But
I think you can say now, half-time ended up being more valuable for Bolton than it did for Peterborough.
I think it steadied the nerves. I think that the message probably changed ever so slightly. I know in the post-match he said he didn't really change anything that he said, but I think there would have been obviously slight edits in terms of like, right, come on, that can't happen again. But it allowed that break in momentum. Sometimes when they score, towards the end of the first half, they can take that momentum through. But sometimes it can be the opposite. And that having that chill and that moment to reflect, figure out where you've gone wrong. Right, let's get out there. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. It can give you that moment to re-establish in the opening 5 minutes. And we did that, and we didn't really look back after that.
No, that's it. As mentioned,
I'd take a performance like that on Saturday against Burton, come home with 3 points, slightly dull, but we've won the game. Wonderful, cheers, nice one.
I want to get to next Saturday, the 18th of October, and I can finally talk about the fact that Bolton have achieved an away victory this season in Sky Bet League
Yes,
1.
please. Yes, please.
I don't care if it happens in one. I'd love it if it happens in both. But if it happens in one or the other, great. Absolutely fine by me.
But both would be ideal, and fingers crossed, we'll see how we go on that one. Of course, not this time last week, because we actually pre-recorded on a Tuesday, which we never do. We recorded last week on a Tuesday because of scheduling conflicts. And of all the weeks for that to happen, we were sat here waxing lyrical about how wonderful everything was at Bolton Wanderers swimming, and lo and behold, that wasn't the case. No sooner had I got home than it all started to unravel, it seemed. There were a few murmurings on Twitter I was like, I was sat here on that Tuesday going, oh, and hopefully, we'll get Miles back down. Well, that won't be happening. It doesn't look like, because he's not in charge no more. It is pandemonium has ensued at Bolton Wanderers women. A lot of the players that we have waxed lyrical about for quite some time, gone. Miles, gone. The new assistant, gone. Just wow. Wow. Then the Mark Isles article comes out.
Well, there were two of them, weren't there?
Well, there was the first one just basically saying, this has happened, but we don't really know why. And then he got stuck in, and look, fair play to Mark, because that was clearly a lot of effort gone into that article. I thought it was a really well done piece of journalism, to be fair. And I was just kind of flabbergasted. The reports of a toxic atmosphere in the training ground, a split in the camp. Obviously, Miles we'd seen a couple of players had left previously. Ocean had left.
Ocean and Sami Mehdi ended up leaving a couple of weeks beforehand, hadn't they?
Which didn't seem, it was just women's football when offers come in and they can go where they want. Sometimes
I didn't read too much into it. I had forgotten to put it into the notes heading into whatever edition we had last month.
But then all of a sudden, boom! It's just like the entire thing's just completely changed now, and it's sad. I was really actually quite sad because we'd kind of had a little peek into it, and we'd had the chance to sit down with Miles and speak to him. We went and saw them win the cup at the Lancashire FA, and we broadcast that, and I went to the game, the Preston game, and I was on the pitch, watching those celebrations, and to see how close of a unit they were, and to see how close they were with the coach, and the way that they were around Miles, it was like you could see how much they respected him and how much they looked up to him, and how much his guidance meant to them. It was crazy, and so to see all this kind of come out, and to hear some of the problems that apparently were bubbling, and like I said, I don't want to really talk about the stuff that I've heard secondhand, because I don't want to say things that aren't true and put them out there as if they are true. But I think it's just a sad thing, because there was such a positivity seemingly around the camp and around the progress they were making, and there was so much time and effort and resources going into it, and to see it kind of crumble a little and such key elements of it to fall away is just a shame. It was like the only thing we really had to shout about come the end of last season in terms of achievement. There was the youth teams did very well, but it was kind of like the awards night when we were there. It was the main.
Yeah, they were the main attraction, weren't they?
Yeah, what they'd done was the main talking point and the main kind of celebratory point of the night. They had a great night. I remember speaking to a couple of girls after the awards, and Miles as well. And yeah, it's just a shame. But the thing is, managers will come and go, and players will come and go, and especially at the level they're at, where they're not under the same kind of contractual stipulations. They can just, if they want to go somewhere else, they can just say, right, see you later, I'm off. But on the flip side, the club can say, right, bye, you're gone. It's not like the upper echelons of the game. But so players will most definitely come and go, and probably at quite a high turnover until Bolton women hit a certain point. But the club will always remain, and the club is what we follow. And as sad as it is to see it kind of fall apart, I still support Bolton Wanderers. So of course I still support Bolton Wanderers women. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It doesn't matter who the players are. I want that team to do as well as possible. I think there's probably a cautionary tale in there somewhere on things not to do in terms of any kind of footballing setup. I think there seems to have been a lot of avoidable upset, I think, from very different places. From what I've heard, and I don't want to be kind of doing anybody wrong and saying anything wrong, but I just think it's just a sad situation. But we will have to move on from it, and whether we whether we see the departures of Miles Smith and Megan Campbell having a knock-on effect as we go down the line, or whether Tom Cunniff's going to come in and just sort things out. He's on an interim manager base at this moment in time, but if he carries himself in the club well through that time, then I don't see any reason, unless he doesn't want it. But if he was willing to take the role on full time and he'd done well, I don't see why they wouldn't just roll on with that to keep the consistency going, because you don't want to chopping and changing.
Yeah, I don't imagine it being like Renee Slagger's at Arsenal, because she ended up taking over from, I forget who the Swedish fellow was she succeeded, but she was there on an interim basis. Look at how their season ended, winning a second Champions League title.
Exactly. So we'll see what Tom can do, and again, because of the way that the contracts work, it's not like there's a transfer window. We can bring players in. So while it's sad to have lost some of our favourites, Faye Knox and Ellie Seals, as we said, Ocean Flanagan and Sana Medi left. I believe more players left as well.
All right, that weren't reported.
I think I did see a report actually that Katie Holt had gone. The captain.
You see, it's interesting you bring that up, because it was thanks to Katie she ended up retweeting that Wrexham women had signed Faye.
Yes, Faye Knox has gone to Wrexham women. I did see that. But again, you can sign for whoever, whenever. It is what it is, and I wish them all the best in the careers.
Of course,
away from Bolton Wanderers. They did the memories they created last season. No matter what's gone on this season, the memories that unit created will never go away, and that history is there. And as a first season, I mean, what a season to have, under full club control for the seniors and all of that. It was a great story, it was a great journey. But the journey now evolves onto something else, and we'll see what Miles can do. And, we
You meant Tom, didn't you?
Yes, sorry, what Tom can do. And we'll move on. We have no choice. It's behind the whites. It's not behind Miles and the girls that had left. It's a Bolton Wanderers thing, and we will continue to be Bolton Wanderers fans, men and women's teams, and we're going to crack on.
Yeah,
they've done
that. Ended up going up to Gateshead, beat Rutherford ladies 5-1, and for the first time ever, they are going to be in the first round proper of the Women's FA Cup.
Fabulous stuff, and it's a shame that some of those names won't be part of that milestone, but those that are will be giving it absolutely everything they've got, and hopefully we'll get a good tie.
Well, we'll get to that in a tick, but you had debut goals from Poppy Wallace, Ella Tweedle and Emanuela Campbell, all of whom have featured regularly for the reserves team. Ella ended up just scoring for fun in Division 1 North. But good to see those three manage to get on the score sheet. Charlotte Tyers and Miller Hodgson also figuring in for the women's whites, and they're going to play Ponteland United. They play in the same competition as Rutherford. They play in the Women's Regional North East Premier Division, but they're a tier higher. So it's a team more or less at the same stage as the pyramid as Bolton, so might end up proving to be quite a cracking little side in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get through that, and who knows, second round.
Yeah, women's Super League team might be.
That's it.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Bolton are at home, so if you're free on Sunday the 26th of October,
I'll have to have a scroll through my calendar and see what's occurring on that day. That'll be over at Charlie. It's always a good day out at Victory Park, gotta say.
You know what? In all my non-league travels, never gone there.
Oh, it's a cracker. You need to get down there.
All right. It's not that I'm dismissing it, but yeah, I'll make myself available. We might as well make a day of it.
Yeah, I'll check my outlets. I can do that now. I've got my phone in front of me with these notes on.
What I can say is that the reserves ended up winning their Division 1 North game.
Well, 26th, did you say?
Yeah, that's right.
I've got one thing on my calendar here. It says British summertime ends.
Oh, fantastic.
So as long as British summertime ending doesn't take up all of my day, then I should be fine.
However, the reserves slightly interrupted because a couple of their players had to
step up
to
of
the
course,
first
yeah.
team. But didn't matter too much. They ended up winning 2-0 at Chorley Women Development.
Lovely stuff.
9 out of 9 now in Division 1 North.
I mean, it just shows that because a lot of that, because a chunk of the first team did seem to end up being put into that reserve team. So, a chunk of those went out there and did it last season in the same division. But the girls around them that have come in, or the girls that weren't quite seen as being up to their standard last season, they've come in and have done an absolutely cracking job. And the fact now that, yes, they've lost a chunk of their side to now patch up where some of the women's firsts have moved on, and to just still go out there and just still smash it 2-0, you can't argue, can you?
No, you can't.
It just shows that the standard is not far off first team level in the reserves.
Both of them are on home soil this weekend. The first, you ready for this, Jim? Tranmere Rovers.
Boo!
Yeah, that's who they've got to contend with on Sunday. I'm talking about the first team, incidentally.
Well, we battered them last season at one point. I mean, granted, we also lost to them last season.
Yeah.
But there you go. We lost to them earlier on in the season. By the time that team had properly come up to speed and started doing what they're doing, they'd smashed them next time around. So hopefully we'll see that again this time and we can get 3 points. And again, we want to see those women doing as well as possible despite the troubles that apparently have inhibited them recently. And to be honest with you, if that's what's been, if stuff like that has been going on behind the scenes, it explains why the form might have been a little bit patchy at the start of the season,
yeah.
rather than necessarily the level being a bit too much, or not too much, but being that much of a step up and just not being able to be as dominant as we were last season. But actually, if you've got that kind of instability and a little bit of, splitting into different camps within a side, it's not going to help the on-field cohesion. It's not going to help in everybody playing for everybody, and it's not going to help results. So
it's a bit of a shame there was no one who could oversee it. And I don't know, maybe it would have been good for someone like Sharon to go, right, everyone, we're going in this room, I've got nothing on for the next 4 hours, I can sense there are problems, can we please talk about them so we can try and get them resolved before it boils over into something nasty? I assume
that there were those kind of meetings, or at least like, let's clear the air, or who's got anything to say meetings, that you've got to assume that those have gone on. They won't be in the public domain, because
no, I get that.
The club won't want to wear the dirty laundry in public too much.
But try and make things a lot safer mentally for all involved.
I would imagine. I would hope, and I would imagine that Bolton Wanderers would have, been into the kind of mediation and let's speak to people, let's see what we can do. When you get into the point where you're releasing, a coach that's done what Miles has done with that squad over a very short period of time, you have to be at the point where you feel there's nothing left to do,
I guess.
So there you go, that is that. We've just about managed to get through the fifth take of trying to close the show without busting into a fit of giggles. There might have been a little bit of a smirk on my face there as I tried to repress them, but not even laughing over anything particularly funny. Just one of those things, when a take goes wrong, it gets silly, and you giggle till the cows come home. But now the cows have come home, and we will also be going home. So thank you for watching us here on Behind the Whites. I've been Jim. This has been Chris. Do remember to tell everybody that you've watched us if you've enjoyed this show. Tell them you can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on Spotify as well. So have a watch, have a listen. But as always, stay behind the whites. We will see you next time.